Okay, so Aria Avalon, what other option do white women have? Everyone else hates us. Everyone has been very vocal about women being on their own after the election. Now our abuser is turning up the abuse to control us. Okay, so I wanted to be able to discuss this comment, but we have to make some agreements before we go into this, okay? Thing number one, there is no dogpiling. This is a educational space. We're exchanging information. Thing number two is that for any white woman that listens to this video, please resist the urge to feel guilty or to hate yourself. That's not what this is. We are exchanging facts. And in order for us to exchange facts and deconstruct ideologies that are not helpful to the forward progression of society, we must deal with the facts. And sometimes the truth is scary, okay? Thing number three, and the most important thing, please leave not everybody outside of these comments. This is not, this is talking about the general society, okay? So please know I'm not like this, not every white woman, okay? So these are all the agreements that all of us have agreed to make. Great, so let's move forward, okay? Now, I wanna be able to tell you about the thing about white women, because I also saw your other comment where you said that white women have been fighting as well. But I want to let you know that that hasn't been long. White women have not been fighting for long. So just let me tell you a little bit about the backside of white women when it comes down to the oppression in the United States of America. Because the myth that has been circulated is that all the way back to even slavery, slavery was kind of like a white man's thing. But let me tell you how white women were a part of slavery. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in 1669, right, with the Casual Killing Act. The Casual Killing Act was explicitly passed, hear me, was explicitly passed because white women were unaliving mixed children in very cruel and alarming ways. To be specific, they were using methods such as boiling them, skinning them, torturing them, and beating them to death. Those were the methods that were utilized. Also, did you know that slave skin was used for shoes? Okay, so this is what women were doing to slaves. And it got so bad that there had to be a law that was passed in order to protect them because white men did not want to hold them accountable. You can double check all of my reference. This one is coming from The Ohio State University, as well as other places. Okay, this is documented stuff, alrighty?
Hello lovelies, welcome back to today's episode. This black woman is trying to tell us more the way some people may think that this oppressors during slavery was mostly white men, but when you try to see and observe each and everything, how each and everything was operating, also these oppressed white women play a big role to oppress other black people in a way you couldn't even understand. Guys, let's dive into today's episode. Let's get to hear her very well. Drop your thought in the comment section. Then we'll come back with more commentaries.
So we know that this is how women were engaging with slaves. Fast forward, right? And now you have the Mississippi Married Women's Property Law of 1839. Okay, and this is very important because a lot of people didn't believe that white women owned slaves, but they did. And this particular law, as well as others like it, allowed for them to be able to take over the wealth of the property should their husbands pass away, and for other reasons that they ended up receiving this type of wealth. Now, this is very different than what was happening in the North. And the reason why it's different than what was happening in the North is because in the North, they were underneath coverture, which for coverture meant that whatever the woman owned belonged to her husband when she got married. So Southern women were richer than Northern white women. And this is very important when you talk about white women supporting some of the things that were going on in the oppression of others in the South, especially when it comes down to the Civil War, because the Civil War had the same outcome for white women in the South that it did for white men in the South, which was everybody was finna be stripped from their wealth. Do you see why white women would support the oppression of others? Even though they themselves are also being oppressed. And this is what is confounding, is that white women, though they also were oppressed, didn't mind participating in the oppression of others due to their direct benefit of patriarchy and the direct benefit of their oppressor's oppression. Okay? Now we gonna keep on going. Because studies also show that because white women in the South were able to own such property, that they accounted for 1/3 of slave transactions that happened in the South. 1/3. That is 33.333333 all the way off into eternity percent of the transactions. But transactions that involved slave women, white women were participating in the marketplace for those transactions at a 40% clip. Now, that's what was happening during slavery. Let's go ahead and fast forward. And this history we all know a little bit more about, right? The weaponizing of white women's tears is what ended up occurring by the time we get to Jim Crow, by the time we get to lynching, right? And there are a lot of different examples that we have of white women lying on people, getting them unalived, and white women coming out to say, oh, by the way, lied about that right before they pass away. That is no different than what actually happens here in modern society, like now that we are fast forwarding, because remember, Emmett Till was in the 70s, 60s, 70s, as in 1960s, 70s. Okay, and remember, that white woman lied on him, and remember, she came out and said that she lied right before she passed away. Okay, so now we fast forward it. All right, to what happens in modern day. Some of the ways that this shows up in modern day is at work when white women go to superiors and bosses and they say that a person of color is not trying to be their friend, or a person of color is not talking to them, or they tried to be nice to them and they're not being nice back. This is another way that that shows up. Because you have to know that you're going to go and tell them that would mean that somebody's going to come and do something about it, because that's the way that white women have been able to navigate this space and this earth. Everybody in America, and I would dare say everybody in the world, knows that a white man caves at the tears of a white woman. And how do I know this? My sociology class. At the end of last week of that class, we were able to ask other minority or other ethnic groups questions that we wanted to know about them. And as you can see, I'm a bit of a chatty person. And so I myself was called upon to ask the first question. And the very first question that I asked was to my white colleagues. And I asked them, why do you guys cry when you don't get your way? Because my black women's tears don't move anything. Okay, but why do you guys cry? And they honestly answered and was like, we were taught to do that so that we can get what we wanted. Now, mind you, this sociology class was run by a white woman, and she was mixed with white and Native American. And she was also somebody that participated in the civil rights. Love this woman down. Okay. Now, the reason why people are saying that white women are on their own is because white women, just like every other group except for black women, benefit due to the proximity or in some form fashion from the oppression that white men put on everybody else. And in this moment, white women have to fend for themselves because the rest of us are fending for ourselves. And that's why. And it hasn't been long that you guys have had to fend for yourself because of your stance in being able to help support minority groups. And is it easy? No, because there's a price to be paid to stand up for what's right. But to give in because it's hard, and to give in because other minority groups aren't fighting for you, with you, isn't fair, because you haven't fought for them with them for that long. I do agree with your sentiment, but I would say that it more so shows them who their family was. And it also adds context for them about why the older generation of their families are very reluctant, hesitant, or it is difficult for them to understand what they're saying about how others are being mistreated and how they would need to stand up for the mistreatment of minority people groups, because there's a generational difference. The thing about traumas and familial stories and habits is that they're intergenerational, right? So if one generation experiences a negative situation, they teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids. The only way to find out if the story is true or not, it goes back to proximity. Proximity to people of color have taught a lot of the millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Alphas, and even some of the Gen Xers, that the story that has been passed down from generation to generation isn't true. And because because the information has been attached to that specific, these younger generations, that's why they are so staunchly different in their stance than older generations. That's why you kind of have this us and them thing that's kind of happening with a lot of white people in their families. It is very important to understand the beginning, the origin of a story. Because, yeah, people that were raised in that generation, people that were raised in that era, it is very, very difficult to unlearn habits and beliefs that are foundational to who you say you are and how you navigate this world. It is literally a shifting of an entire mental paradigm. And that's not an easy thing to just change, right? Like when you take a look at this current administration, President Trump was alive before desegregation. His parents was alive during sharecropping. You see what I'm saying? Like, so these type of beliefs that he has are very, very deeply rooted because of the generation that his family comes from, if that makes sense. So VP Kamala Harris graduated with her doctorate degree, in Juris Doctorate degree is what it's called, in 1989. Beginning in 1990, she became a prosecuting attorney. Then she was also the district attorney. She then became the attorney general, and from being the attorney general, she also became the a U.S. senator. And then from being a U.S. senator, she went to being the VP of the United States of America. This is 30 years worth of preparation, 30 years worth of studying, 30 years worth of understanding her sector, understanding what's necessary when it comes down to governance, and honing her craft. What we currently see is that there is an assault on qualified people, on qualifying, disqualified people. And so this administration right now is seeking to be able to have a narrative that they want qualified people to be in roles, to be able to lead the government. But at the same time, they are seeking to make it very hard for you to be a qualified person. And so I want to be able to encourage you all today in that whatever sector you wish to go into, prioritize qualifying yourself, learning things, having those certifications. Even if you choose not to do even if you choose not to do a traditional route where you go to a university, that is perfectly fine. But you must find a way to qualify yourself, not for right now, but for the future. And when it comes down to those that have been fantastic leaders, they know the importance of being qualified. They know the importance of education. And Barack Obama said that there's no need for us to wait for other people. We are the person that we're waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And so for those that are millennials, for those that are Gen Xers, now is your time. But in order for you to be able to do what it is that you want to do, as far as assisting others and going into these places and spaces where you can impact and affect change, you must be qualified. And the time for you to be qualified is not when you're needed. You are supposed to qualify yourself in preparation for when you're needed. Had Vice President Kamala Harris not taken the time to qualify herself, there is an argument that when she was needed, she would have not been selected and thusly would not have been chosen. One of my previous videos talks about this narrative of what's for me is for me. I don't like that narrative. And the reason why I don't like that narrative is because it leads to complacency. It leads one to believe that by osmosis, everything that you desire is just going to show up for you. And that's not how life works at all. You must be prepared to receive what it is that you are trying to obtain. And this current administration is seeking to dismantle the Department of Education. Have you not thought about why we are seeking to dismantle the Department of Education? You literally have men that are in power right now that are unqualified and unfit to even run their own businesses. Not an educational requirement has been met. Not a service requirement has been done. One of them even sought to dodge the service requirement that was mandated by claiming that he had some type of disability. So in this time, where there is a targeted and concerted effort to qualify the disqualified, I urge you to find yourself qualified. Not for today, but for tomorrow. Because now is quickly approaching our time to be able to impact change. And I am underneath the belief that those that are necessary for change are you and I. But the only difference between you and I being the change that's needed and not being the change that's needed is
when you try to hear this Black lady, the way she's trying to explain each and everything, people may think that during slavery, only white people had the right to oppress people only. But when you try to observe it well, even this oppressed white women had that opportunity to oppress other minority, other races, especially Black people, because during this period of slavery, this white woman was also oppressed by their white husband, but at least for them, they still had that white privilege, that whiteness, and they still have few rights. No wonder whenever they say that Black women has suffered a lot in the hands of these white women during slavery. It is something like people never wanted to talk about it, but it is something really important people need to know and get to know each and everything. When we are talking about people getting oppressed in those 100, 400 years, and when you see the role these white women played in those period, if they would be having at least some sympathy for these Black people, at least they would have another area of escaping, of protection, but they never had that opportunities because these white women was so bad. How come after having all those wealthy from your husband here and there, you can't even have that heart? You are still turning and come back to lie about Black men. You've been making a lot of Black men being killed because of accusation which never happened. No wonder they said this white woman's tears it is something which has been so long there, causing a lot of problems. When a white woman came out to cry, know that each and everything for you, you are done. There is no any way they are going to defend you. There is no any way you are going to get justice. And the funny things, after these people doing something like this of accusation, whenever they see these people is about to lose his life, they will say, oh, I was lying. I think I lose my mind. I think it was not light. I think what I say he has done, I'm not 100%. See what these people has done. And yet till date, when you try to see, the society is still seeing white men as the worst oppressors. These people has also both play a big role. If you are a mother, a white woman also owns slaves. They have that right to enslave other people. If you are a mother of the family, they gave you these slaves to hold them, to do whatever you want on them. You had that capacity at least to give them food, at least to make them have that rest. But these white women, they were the worst. They were the one who were spending most hours with these enslaved people, but they never gave them any sympathy, any peace of mind. No wonder when the society is coming out to hold accountability of people who were oppressing other people during slavery, people should also consider the role of these white women they played in this period. How come these black women, the way they were treated, mistreated in a way you can't even imagine, an unhuman way? Even they were the one who had that capacity to breastfeeding these babies for these white women. Just try to imagine the pain these black women passed through. That time, even with these white men, they have that attraction through from black women, especially their dressing, their skin of color, their hair. Even these white women came out with the idea to say they need to cut off all their hairs so that these black women would look like masculine. No white men will ever be in love with them. Try to imagine that picture, how these people suffered. Even if when you had that good hair, they would oblige you to cover each and everything so that no one will ever see your hair, because black women had good hairs. And when we came out to say that whenever you talk each and everything happen in a society, don't ever forget the role of white women. Even on this current administration, we are keep saying if white women would come out to unite together to say the system you are bringing here is going to make a lot of Americans suffer, you need to change many things, we would see some change. Because whatever happened in a meeting, whatever happened in the houses, whenever their husband discuss about something or they have some meetings, these white women, they are always there. They are always there in decision making. They know each and everything happening. They know how each and everything is being operated. They know the plans. They know what tomorrow is going to bring. But if they can't stand up and raise up their voice, nothing, we will never see any change. If we have these Congress women in the parliament, they would come out to say, no, these policies you are using, we don't want them. Let's vote again. You would see change. That's what happened during this period of also slavery. If these white women would come out to say, let's save these black women we are using, let's save these black men we are using, at least things would have better. You are holding hundreds of slaves as your properties. You are being paid to use them as properties. Even the time you lose them, they gave you reparations. You got a lot of money. And yet you are sitting there saying that these white women never knew anything about what black people really passed through. Till date, try to see this Karen here and there. They are still coming out to cry in a restaurant. They are still calling the police. Oh, this black man pass close to me. I feel I'm doubting maybe he want to steal from me. Till that, we are still making videos about it. Whenever they express their tears, know that each and everything is going to change. But some people came out to ask these white women, how come you always, whenever you want something, whenever something is not going well, you always use tears? And for them, for sure, they explain this is something they taught us to do, because when they don't see you having emotions, they will never respond to you so fast. No wonder they taught us to cry whenever we want something. See what is really happening. People has been always asking this same question: why you white women have this courage to lie whenever they want something bad to happen to some people? But see, this is not something new. This is something they used to do even in back years, and it helped them a lot in one way or the other. If white woman would come out during slavery and lie to a black man that he has done something to her, they will immediately take that black man away and unalive him in front of her, because she has expressed those tears, those crocodile tears. Now you see, and till death, this is something we would say these white women, they still hold the key to save the society. If they would agree to come out and say something, we would see some changes even across the world. We would see these things of racism starting to go away. But they are the best one to hold this high level of racism. These are the people who are still holding this white supremacists inside them. Guys, let me know what you think today's episode. Drop your thought in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you in my next episode. Bye.